This is the Inquisitive Minds Podcast.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Inquisitive Minds Podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Johnny Smith. With me today, my guest, you guys know her, you love her, friend of the podcast. She is a lawyer. She is a comedian, but I think her proudest accomplishment is being on episode 3 and 11 of Inquisitive Minds Podcast. Brittany Alexis, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Those are my marked accomplishments.
We are back with our Mysterious People series, part 2, and today we're going to be talking about D.B. Cooper. Now, I don't have any announcements. You got anything you need to go into, or are we just going to get right into it today?
We can just get right into it, honestly.
All right, let's rock and roll. What can you tell me about D.B. Cooper?
So D.B. Cooper, first of all, this is a real story, unlike the last one that I brought you. This one actually happened. It was actually the subject of the FBI investigation for about 45 years, and it's unsolved, which is why it's Mysterious People. And it's based on an incident that took place on November 24th, 1971, so the night before Thanksgiving. This person is getting into some nefarious activity, which really sucks for all the passengers, but let's get into it. So essentially, it was a hijacking of a commercial plane, and it was one of the first ones, I guess, in American history, or it's the only unsolved one, rather. But essentially, this guy gets on a plane from Portland to Seattle, and let's get into it. So this guy gets
and I take that's a relatively short flight, I take it?
That's what I would think. I can't imagine it being too long.
Maybe an hour, if
maybe 45 minutes. They probably don't even serve food on this. It's domestic.
Yeah, more than likely.
But so essentially this guy gets on this plane. His name is, from what we know, D.B. Cooper. He's also been identified as Dan Cooper, even though this person hasn't been identified. And I have notes in front of me, so that's what I'm looking at. But it's kind of crazy. So essentially what happens is this guy named D.B. Cooper is on a plane. He lights a cigarette, because you were allowed to do that in 1971 on the plane.
Which we at Inquisitive Minds are pro that era.
Yeah, it was definitely a different time. So he lights a cigarette, and he's sitting in an aisle seat, which I guess is important because of what happens later. But he's sitting in this aisle seat on flight 305, and he lights a cigarette, gets a bourbon and a soda, and he gives a note to a flight attendant. And the flight attendant's name's Florence Schaefer. She's 23 years old. She's pretty young. So he gives this note, and I guess she didn't look at it at first, so he kind of had to draw her attention to the note.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm trying to hijack you.
Excuse me. I won't look at that. But no, so he draws her attention to the note, and she looks at the note, and it says, "I have a bomb in my briefcase," and that he wants her to sit beside him. And so she does that. And there are more demands.
That is a hell of a way to pick up a lady.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just said, hey, if you want me to sit by you, all you had to do is
I have a bourbon. Would you like to join me with one?
I mean, anything would have been better than I have a bomb.
I have a bomb in my briefcase.
Happy to see me. No. Yeah, no. So that was a very bizarre way to do. I'm not going to lie. I don't really get his style, because I think he's trying to be super cool, like James Bond cool. But at the same time, it's a note about a bomb in your briefcase. And you could have just said that out loud, because you're being pretty bold about it anyway.
Yeah, all the pictures or characterizations I've seen have shown him with glasses. Mm-hmm. I believe he was in a suit.
Yes.
So the whole James Bond suave thing, unfortunately, we don't know if that was an act. Maybe this guy was the coolest hijacker in the world.
Maybe, or the nerdiest one ever. And he's like, I can pull it off because I've written everything down. I have all of my plans.
He definitely smells like an incel. Hey, lady, I got a bomb in my bag. Come sit with me.
Yeah, it does. It does. This is the only way I'll get her attention. The description of him by the FBI has been, he was a white male, 6'1", 175 pounds approximately, about 40, maybe in his mid-40s. Olive complexion, brown eyes, black hair. He had a conventional cut, which I guess would be, it kind of is like that Mad Men cut where it's on the side,
Yeah, it seems like nothing about his appearance would really stand out.
No, parted on the left. There's nothing about him that's noticeable. I mean, outside of the fact, because I feel like a lot of people would dress up to get on airplanes still in 1970s. I know they were.
Yeah, in those times it was an event. You wore a suit, you looked nice. It was an event. So nowadays you throw on sweatpants and flip flops and You're lucky if you showered.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know
I
when the
guess
last time you've been to the airport was, Brittany, but it is ridiculous there.
it is. It is. It is. Even I like to dress up for everything, and even I relax it a little bit for the airport. I put on some sneakers, you know.
Yeah, I just throw on some shoes that I can easily get on and off.
Yeah, yeah, something comfortable, especially even if it's like a short flight. And also, I do know how long the flight. It's about a 30-minute flight, so it's
Oh,
not a
that's a
long
very
flight at
quick
all.
flight.
Yeah, it's not long at all. Um, but yeah, so the rest of his demands were that he wanted $200,000 for parachutes delivered on landing at the SeaTac airport, which that's the part of this story that makes it very unique because a
Now,
lot of times
the airport you said he wanted it at, is that where they were supposed to land anyways?
I think I think it is where they were supposed to land, or no, it's not where they were supposed to land exactly. Um, but it's not like that far out. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, he I can double check because I didn't actually think to look that up. So if you give me a second, I'll have an answer for you and I can keep going. But they wanted to
Okay.
land at the SeaTac airport, and um, that's what he wanted to do. And that's the unique thing about that is he wanted to take off again and go to Mexico via Reno for refueling. So they would have to refuel at the SeaTac airport and then keep going down to Mexico. But what ultimately happens is he gives his demands to it's SeaTac Tacoma International Airport. And so I guess it is where they were supposed to land because it's in
Tacoma, Washington.
Seattle. Yeah, in Tacoma, Washington. So I guess
Okay.
that is where they're supposed to land. But so he wanted to go and continue to Mexico. But you notice he asked for 4 parachutes. And so what they've done is they let the authorities on the ground know, and the authorities actually get the money together. They also don't tell the passengers on the plane what's going on. They say they've run into minor difficulties. And like you're talking about a 30-minute flight that was over 3 hours because they're just circling for 3 hours as the authorities on the ground try to get everything together. And I guess they're trying to see if they can like get this guy off the plane, which I don't think that was their real plan. I think they probably thought about it.
That makes me wonder what really happens up there, because I was on a flight some years back and I was going to New York City from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It was delayed about 5 or 6 hours as it was.
Yeah.
And when we get in there, we get flying, and the flight to New York's 45 minutes, New York City.
Not far.
It's not long at all. And about 40 minutes into the flight, they come over the loudspeaker and say, "We're going to have to turn around. We're running out of fuel," which didn't make any sense to me, just because in my mind, logistically, it's quicker to go finish the flight. We're almost there.
Yeah.
So we get back, and for some reason or another, it gets canceled. Canceled.
The flight gets canceled?
The flight. It got delayed for about 4 more hours and then finally canceled. This is about 1 a.m. They give me a ticket for the next flight at 5 a.m. So I was already miserable. Now, when we get there to New York City on the next morning, the pilot comes over the loudspeaker and says, "We're going to be delayed landing." And we circled around for about 45 minutes, he said, because there are turtles on the runway.
Do you think they were telling the truth?
Well, if anybody out there listening works for the airports or anything, if turtles on the runway is code for something crazy, please let us know, because I find it hard to believe that some turtles are going to stop a plane from landing.
Yeah.
But this guy,
after the first one.
Yeah, this guy can charter flights apparently from place to place, and it's interesting that they say, they didn't tell them there was a hijacking. I understand you don't want to alert people, but at the same time, it's kind of important to know these could be your dying minutes.
I mean, yeah, I know. I don't know if that's like a policy throughout the transportation industry, because I was on a train one time, and when I was on the train, I think what happened is there was like a tragedy and something was hit. I don't know if it was a person or what happened, but something happened. But they didn't tell us that. They told us that the plane or the train was being robbed, which definitely threw us all into a panic, because this isn't 1875. You don't just rob trains anymore. If somebody's robbing a train, it is terrorism. It was like 2015, yes. 2016. It's terrorism. It's 100% terrorism. And so I'm freaking out like, okay. And we're sitting there for 3 hours. Like, we're sitting for 3 hours. I see the cops out there for hours. And so we don't know what's going on. I'm like, it's a hostage negotiation. Any minute, they're taking this train over. Like, I don't know what they're going to do with the train, but they're about to send a message. Because I was leaving from DC.
Oh,
And then,
yeah. You said they were going to send a message, huh?
Sending a message. And we had no signal, so I couldn't call anyone and ask. But then I ran into one of my friends on the train. I didn't know she was on the train. Turns out they told them somebody died on the train, which freaked us out even more because it's like, one, you're telling us conflicting stories. Two, what did that person die of? Because the way you're making it seems like it's something that could affect all of us. But
dysentery.
Like nothing. Nothing.
He just died of dysentery.
Don't worry about it. Because again, we're on the Oregon Trail. So it made no sense at all. But
we're delayed, guys. We had a passenger die of consumption.
Yeah. Got the scurvy. You're like, oh my goodness. Like,
hey, I take offense to that. I used to walk around looking like I had scurvy.
Did you have scurvy though?
Not at all.
That's good.
I just displayed all the physical symptoms of it.
I can get, I can't even laugh about people having old diseases because I had scarlet fever when I was a kid. So
that sounds like a romantic disease, though. Like, I know it's probably terrible, yeah. but I've never known anyone outside of you, I guess, that's had it. But it sounds like such a romantic disease. Like, I have scarlet fever. My lover has not returned from war. I
will die from a broken heart. Like, that's what it sounds like. But no, it's me and like some 17th century child that had scarlet fever. It's like people who had iron lungs had scarlet fever.
I knew a guy with polio.
Polio? That sucks.
Yeah, his leg was so messed up that he carried a 6-foot walking stick with it.
Yeah.
And literally was able to wrap his leg around the stick.
Man, that stuff is hard.
Yeah, it's rough.
It is rough. But so yeah, no. Who knows? Who knows what actually happened? But I do think it's a trend where they don't want to alarm passengers, but at the same time, they have had all this time to think of possible excuses, and they have not come up with better ones to tell passengers so they don't freak out. But,
the easiest thing to say is we're having mechanical issues.
Yeah, and they said that, but I mean, you're saying they have mechanical issues. You've been flying around for 3.5 hours for a 30-minute flight. Seems like a little bit more.
I dig it. It's suspicious. I'd rather have people questioning than panicking, though.
Yeah, so I can get that. But so when they landed at SeaTac, he got his money in the parachutes, and they let all 36 passengers off the plane. So it was a smaller domestic flight anyway.
So 4 parachutes.
4 parachutes. And
$200,000 in cash.
Yes.
That's fascinating that they just gave that to him.
And that's the thing. I want to say this is this was back in it's in the 70s, so it's not that long ago, but it was long ago enough where I think they were still trying to figure out how to deal with situations like this. And this is a unique circumstance. Most of the time people are like, give me the money and have me a car ready to go and I'll drive to Reno. This is the first time.
I hate to be that guy, but it sounds like privilege.
I mean, yeah, that too, because you do have this smartly dressed 6'1" Caucasian man.
They could have just shot him in the goddamn head.
They could have.
Called it a day.
How did they give him the money?
That's what I wonder.
You have the time. You're actually interacting with this person, but yet you still give him the money and the parachutes. But he gets the parachutes, and it takes off to refuel at Yuma.
At Yuma, Arizona. Yeah. Okay.
So this is when it gets real crazy. So while they're on their way to this refueling destination, he parachutes into a thunderstorm. And they've never seen him again.
All right. See, that's where the story gets crazy and where it gets interesting. Not that it's not already interesting, but what the fuck?
I don't know.
I don't have any other thoughts outside of that. First off, I want a parachute.
Yeah.
I'm working on towards the weight limit because there's a weight limit to get on skydive.
Yeah.
But if I get up there and I can clearly see a thunderstorm, we're calling it a day.
I mean,
so did they know anything about why he wanted 4 parachutes, anything like that?
They weren't able to actually get that information. I mean, I know that when you parachute, you have your main parachute and then you have your backup. So I think he might have, and this is the thing about it, because they thought either he's a genius he is very good at parachuting, or he's not good at all at parachuting. And that, I don't know. I think that I get that nerdy vibe from him where he thought that he could pull it off because he did enough research to satisfy him and he had everything thought out and planned out. And so, I mean, I don't know. This is pretty weird because you got this guy in his 40s who's just thinks this is a good idea.
Did they speak to anyone on the plane of the crew? Did they get a chance to have any other interactions with him before he jumped?
It doesn't seem like they did. It just seems like he kind of kept to himself. I like didn't see anything. That's not to say it didn't happen, but like I didn't see anything saying that they actually had like a lot of conversation with him, because I don't even think they heard his voice when he gave them the note. He just gave them notes. I don't think that he actually spoke to them and actually had conversations with them.
So they've refueled. They're on their way down. They're flying down to Mexico.
They're flying down to the refuel station.
Oh, they're still on their way to the refuel station.
Yeah, like they haven't even gone to the refuel station location that he planned out.
And where does he jump?
He jumps out on that, like between the SeaTac airport and on the way, to Yuma. And
do we know like what city specifically he was over when he jumped?
Well, it's unclear because like he could have jumped anywhere from like into trees to like into the ocean.
Yeah. Did they talk about how he jumped? What did he open? Just a door? What was going on?
He lowered the stairs. He lowered the stairs in the back. And the other thing is he had I forgot to mention this, but he had specifications for how he wanted the plane to be flown even. Like he wanted it to be kept under, I want to say like, it was flying very low, like the whole time. I want to say it was 50,000. I forgot to write that down, but he had it where like I think he thought he planned this all out so well, like no matter what, like if I jump from here, I'll be fine, because at no point are they going to be, going up super high.
Yeah. I don't know if that guy knew this, but the difference between jumping from 10,000 feet and 100,000 feet, if you land the right way, it's still going to kill you either way.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, the more you describe him, the more he gives off that nerdy, I can do it because I've researched it vibe.
That's just kind of what I'm thinking, because it just, I don't know.
And like the whole thing is, in the 70s, it was harder to research stuff. We're spoiled. Yeah. We have Google at the tip of our fingers. He probably went and got an encyclopedia, maybe went to the library, read some books in theory, but it's still, you don't know as much. Even now, you can watch instructional videos. You can talk to the people that have done it, and it's better to learn. But back then, you're just guessing.
Yeah.
That's why people had recipe books. Like,
there were books about everything.
You can't be trusted to keep a casserole in order. How do you expect to learn how to fly from reading?
I have no idea. But I think he thought that he would be able, and that's the other thing, because what would have been a better idea probably for him is to commandeer the plane. If he actually had thought of it and thought it, that would make him a target, but to keep the pilot on, I don't know. I think that would have been a better idea for him ultimately, because then you would make sure, like, if you get your pilot's license, you know how to, pilot.
Well, if we're doing hindsight here, wouldn't it just been easier to hijack a larger plane with more fuel and travel down, if you're already headed to South America or the South American countries, Latin America, somewhere with no extradition treaties, like Ecuador or somewhere, you might have to pay off the politician. That's $100,000. Boom. You still got $100,000 and you're not going to prison. Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't thought about it or anything.
I haven't figured this out. No, but it's 1971, so they don't have cameras or anything. So they're not going to really be able to identify him. Like, they haven't been able to identify him anyway.
So he jumped out, and no one's ever seen him again.
No one's ever seen him again. Now, there were some suspects. There were over 800 suspects. But I was able to, like I told you, I used, a lot from history.com as well, and I watched some stuff about it. But the first one was Richard McCoy Jr. Richard McCoy Jr., he was actually a very skilled, skyjacker? Skyjacker. He, on April 7th in 1972, so not very long after the DB Cooper incident, he hands a flight. He gets a fake name, obviously. He uses a fake name. He gets on a flight. He gives a note to one of the flight attendants demanding $500,000 and 4 parachutes. If these weren't furnished, he, who was a seasoned skydiver and helicopter pilot, as they know, he was going to bomb the plane. So it lands, refuels, he gets the cash, he exchanged the passengers for cash and the parachutes, and then he goes to the next destination and he jumps. he was caught and he was ultimately convicted of the crime and convicted of air piracy, which I think it's kind of funny they call it piracy.
Air piracy. I love it.
Piracy. And he like got a very lengthy prison sentence. However,
So that was in 72.
That was in 72. It was a few months later.
So he was he incarcerated while this other hijacking happened?
No, he did it after the other hijacking.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So what you're saying is he could have done that one and then done this one as well.
He was a suspect. And I mean, hindsight, it seems like he probably didn't do it. He actually ended up in a shootout because the FBI tracked him down because on August 10th, he and some of his inmates hijacked a garbage truck and escaped from the penitentiary. And so he actually ended up getting into a shootout in Virginia with the FBI, which obviously is not a good idea. And he ended up dead.
I like his energy. I like his spirit.
He's a lot.
Get the fuck out of there by any means necessary.
I like those 1940s mobsters energy. Like, I'm never gonna go down. And you're like, you should probably just calm
down. The thing is, too, when you're in there, you do a lot of that thinking about how can I escape?
Yeah.
How can I get out of here? And even if you come up with some type of plan, I've always thought like, okay, after I get out of here, that's not it. No. I'm not free. No. They're going to be looking for me. It's going to change my whole life. So, I mean, that's balls though.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I think a lot of his thing was impulse, because if you're looking at, he committed this crime in 1972 in April, and then he escapes the penitentiary in August. He like really didn't give himself enough time to, I don't think through a plan for what he was going to do. Because like, if you and a group of people bust out, you're going to get caught. It's not a good idea to do it with like a huge group where they're all going to know that you're gone. And then you're also making your bed with all these other people whose impulses are the same as yours. And
now
so
you are a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah.
So I don't have to tell you, not everybody in that lifestyle is of upstanding moral fiber.
No, I understand that, but
there's honor among thieves. I will say that there's a certain honor among thieves, but a lot of those guys will just as soon as stab you in the back.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, it was not unfortunately. It was the FBI that was their undoing, because he should have known that they were tracking him. It was an FBI case, so
yeah, but people don't think about that.
No, they don't.
Especially when they're doing a life of crime, they don't care. They already know what's going on.
He probably thought. I mean, it was over. He got 45 years.
Once you're in there, what's the worst that can happen? You're in there even longer?
Yeah. So,
people don't realize 20 years, 25 years, that's usually a death sentence.
Yeah.
That's damn near a life sentence. And even if you do your 20, 25 and get out, mm-hmm. your life is still drastically different.
It is. Because
we're not all freeway Rick Ross. You know what I mean? Not everybody's going to have that after prison fame and career. Most of us were just douchebags doing bad shit.
I mean, if you're thinking about like just technological advances, like if you went in at 1990 and got out at 2010, it is a much different world than it was in 1990.
Absolutely. I remember getting out. I did a year, I think it was in around 07. Mm-hmm. And before I went in, I had a flip phone, whatever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I got out, I asked my friend, like one of my best friends, to use his phone, and he handed me a Windows phone that had a stylus and was touchscreen and everything. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I couldn't even figure out initially how do I use the phone on this thing?
Yeah.
It happens. And I also happen to have a conversations with a friend of mine, actually one specific friend that's ongoing. And he talks about the technological advances. Like if I was born in 1910 or in that time period, why wouldn't you be a bank robber?
Yeah, because you were getting caught.
You just, as long as you're not there when they show up, you're pretty much good to go. And it's simple. Just go to another state.
Yeah.
Agencies didn't even talk to each other at that point.
No, John Mulaney has like a good joke about that. He was like, as long as he's I think he says they dressed up like it was church in Georgia. And they would go and they would announce themselves like, it's me and Joe the Scuggins gang. And they did. People
it's so romanticized.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I don't want to say society was better, but society was fancier. Everything was, your appearance was much more important. Like, A lot of
Yeah.
people, even myself, I'm guilty of it, leaving the house. Sometimes I don't give a shit about what I look like.
Yeah.
But back then, everything had an air of sophistication to it. Even bank robbers, like you look at Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah.
all the pictures of them, they were wearing suits.
Yeah.
They might have been shot up or beat up, but they were in suits and dresses, or John Dillinger. Everything was fancy back then.
Yeah.
Now it's just whatever. I could have my gun in my sweatpants.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just
shout out to Plexico Burrs.
Society. Wait, what?
Shout out to Plexico Burrs.
Oh, it happens a lot though, because you can have, I don't know, things have changed a lot. And when you're talking about, because I was watching a 1940s gangster movie last week, and even in that movie, they could have got away with the crimes if they had just stopped committing so many of them. They were like,
just get the hell out of there.
Everywhere. And that was their undoing, because obviously everyone's tracking you when you go from state to state committing crimes, and you're known to the police the whole time. And then you start shooting people all willy-nilly. You can't just murder everyone.
And a lot of times they announce it too.
Yeah.
This was the Clive Barker gang coming for you.
And they shot people like in the street. You can't follow someone out of a restaurant and then shoot them and then think you're going to get away with it if you do
Brittany,
it 5 times.
It's ridiculous. They were just riding in cars. Instead of robbing a place and then getting to where you need to go, it was a crime event. They'd go in, rob a place, kill a couple people, get a shootout through town, get through there, make it through the next town, get into a shootout there, maybe rob a man for his car, and then finally go to Minneapolis. Like, hey, you guys could have just robbed the bank and got the fuck out of there. No
one actually had to get shot because they gave you the money. And the cops got there late, so you were fine.
And the thing is, they were almost, I don't want to say they were looked upon as heroes, but the way a lot of those people did it, like especially John Dillinger, I'm here for the bank's money, not your money. Mm-hmm. That type of situation shows like, I'm a man of the people, get the people behind you. And we're shooting the cops. Yeah, fuck them. Because no matter what time period, there was a huge population that always thinks the cops are oppressive.
Yeah. And it's like that Robin Hood theme where it's like, if you can get the people on your side, you probably get away with a lot more.
That's all it is.
But I don't know. And I think that was a little bit in what's his name? Richard McCoy. I think that idea of let's just do the crimes, because like, I mean, for him to ask for $500,000 and 4 parachutes right after the DB Cooper incident is just like, ooh, probably wait.
Well, as a negotiator, you always ask for more than you want.
I mean, yes, that's true.
And I always tell someone ridiculous things, like, especially for comedy shows, Brittany, you know how it is. You got a show. If it's free, I don't care. It's not what it's about right now.
Yeah.
But when people ask me, oh, how much would you charge me to do this? I tell them something stupid. Something I'm not even worth, and be like, now you come at me with an offer, you idiot.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, when I did negotiations, we used to do negotiation competitions in law school. And
who's the nerd now?
I am the big nerd. Oh my goodness.
I'm just playing.
No, but you don't understand. I have come such a long way in my nerdiness. I used to read like what's it called? Not even the Constitution for fun. I have pocket constitutions. I have several. That who knows, if there's a constitutional crisis, I have the Constitution with me. So
hey man, all people need to know is the first and the second anymore.
I mean, that's how people feel, but I feel like we should probably remember the 4th and the 5th and the 6th. Those are pretty important.
I think they're all pretty solid for the most part.
Yeah. But that's how we act. We act like only the part of the First and the Second Amendment exist, and there are a lot more than
shall not be infringed.
They'll not be infringed.
I just want people to be safe. Shall not be infringed. I don't know if you read the fine print. Like, people go nuts. It's like, well, what about the rest of them? Well, the second one means I don't have to read the rest of them.
And it's just like, no, that's not what that means. Those things don't mean what you think, especially depending on, and see, this is the nerd moment, especially depending on how you interpret the Constitution. If you're going by original intent, the Second Amendment might actually just mean that you have a right to be a Minuteman. Like to come out against the government.
Well, I hate to go off on a tangent here, but all those guys screaming about the Second Amendment and all this, the word amendment means things can change. Mm-hmm. So calm your boots there, buddy.
It means a lot, yeah. And then again, you have a right to an attorney, and you have a right to due process, and a right to a trial by your peers or a jury of your peers. I mean, that's all within those first 10. They were all written at the same time.
Yeah, they were
So,
quality. Plead the fifth,
there we
all that
go.
shit.
Yeah,
What is it? The military can't.
that's third.
I'm
Quarter.
probably. No,
No,
pleading the
you're
fifth
right.
is not incriminating myself.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
no, though, no. I'm saying the one that you're talking about, the military not being
is like
allowed
they
to
can't just come in
quarter
and
themselves.
yeah,
That's the
there you
Third
go.
Amendment.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
Yeah,
stuff in there. People need to
yeah,
learn.
yeah. And like
Freedom of the press, freedom of
first
speech.
one,
Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequences.
no,
Yeah.
especially considering threatening speech and lies. Like fraud would not be illegal if freedom of speech meant you can say whatever you want without
Well, that's why we
consequences.
have slander and libel and all that. Like
Hmm.
you
So
can't like yeah, it's free, but you can't be willy-nilly and just do dangerous shit and expect
no,
no consequence. We're
and
getting
you can
way
have
off
consequences.
topic here though.
We are. We're talking
As
about culture
usual.
war. Okay,
Um
so there was another suspect after Richard McCoy. His name is Robert Rackstraw. He was a former pilot and paratrooper. So that is a good lead because you have someone who would have experience as a paratrooper, which is the
mhm.
correct term for a parachute person. It's not parachutist, like I probably previously
Hold on.
stated.
Hold on.
It's paratrooper.
I like parachutist.
I prefer that term. It sounds very fancy and regal.
Here at Inquisitive Minds, we're going to use parachutist.
We're going to use the term parachutist. You can use paratrooper if you feel like it, but
He was a
he's
parachutist in the
experienced.
service.
Parachutist.
Yeah.
It has an accent on the I. Um, no, but I think he had a lot. As the history.com said that he had a lot going on, and they weren't lying because he had $75,000 worth of bad checks. He was possibly they thought he might have murdered his stepfather.
Here-
Um,
Here's here's where
grand
I'm going to
theft.
lose half my audience. He had $75,000 in debt. Whoa, sounds like a young Trump.
And they were all bad. If he had just kept that route, he probably could have gone a much different way.
He
Probably
maybe became
would not be
president.
on this. But he was acquitted of the murder charge. Um, he did fake his own death in 1978, so it got worse.
Brittany, I have
Um,
never admitted this to anyone.
yeah,
Um, and this might come back to bite me in the ass one day, but it is my dream one day. Obviously, we want to be successful in the arts or whatever we're pursuing. I
yeah.
want to make enough money that I can fake my own death and then just live the rest of my life unknown. Like that is my dream
Yeah.
to fake my own death one day.
I do. I'm not gonna lie. I've thought about it. I have no idea of how it's. Okay. At the same time, I can't see how it's possible, but I also very much can see how it's possible because I think to some extent, like all of our like everyone has their own value of themselves in society, and
Hmm.
I think sometimes our value may be overinflated or less
Oh,
inflated. Not that
definitely.
we're not valuable, but I think that sometimes we think we're not noticeable at all, or that we're extremely noticeable. And so I think for most people, not that they're not noticeable, not that they wouldn't be missed. I think if you disappeared, I don't think they would have leads. I think that's where it comes in. So a lot of people, like you probably could fake your own death.
Well, the thing is,
It's
I have a lot of
possible.
friendships, but I
Yeah,
don't have any connections outside of like my mother that would lead me to like, oh, he left his kids or he left his wife or anything like that.
yeah,
And I'll be honest, my mother's not going to be around forever.
yeah.
So
You don't
as
have
long
to
as I
fake
can,
your own death.
well, it's,
Don't do
it's an
it.
eventual goal one day. And I will say though, I'm not a Nazi, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to Argentina.
Okay.
From what I understand,
Argentina's nice.
Argentina is a great place to retire and not be known.
That's what I've heard. It is
Yeah.
nice. So I can get
Mengele
that.
did it. Hitler may have did it.
That's interesting. I've never really done a deep dive into that, but that is
Oh, it's
interesting.
fascinating.
Um,
There was a lot of Nazis that if they didn't work for NASA or the government, they moved to Argentina.
I have heard about that too.
Yeah, that's Operation. What was it? Operation Paperclip.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Without them, we wouldn't have made it to the moon. We wouldn't have had the atomic technology we had. Like
Yeah.
all that was due to Nazi scientists.
I
Like as
didn't
evil as
realize that,
they were beneficial to our country.
which is a very strange dichotomy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. America's wild.
Oh, it
right?
still is.
Got some stuff going on. But Robert
So
Resch,
that guy faked his own death in
he
78?
faked his own death. Um, yeah. He also went to
My
prison, so
hero.
he was not successful. It was not successful. It was not successful. What's it called? They don't think he did it, though.
Okay.
I don't think they really found a lot of evidence, and then he ended up dying in 2019. There was also someone who confessed, but not like really confessed. It's this guy named Kenneth Christensen. He did work for Northwest, the hijacked airline, as a mechanic and flight attendant. So I mean, that's good enough. That's a better link than I think the other ones, because the other ones, their link is they had criminal tendencies and they did a lot of things that they weren't supposed to be doing. A lot within the vein of hijacking air. Oh, sorry.
No.
You good? Oh, but a lot within the vein of hijacking airplanes and parachuting, or parachuting, if you prefer.
They were
that
parachutists.
Term. Parachutist. So I can understand why they would have been connected, but I mean, as far as like a link before their criminal behavior, it doesn't seem like there really existed one. But with this guy, on his deathbed, he was like, "There's something you should know, but I cannot tell you." And then he died. So
and that was it.
Military paratrooper. He had been a military paratrooper. I don't know. I will
refer to him as a government parachutist.
Yeah. Also, one thing you might. So we talked about the identikit sketch and what DB Cooper.
Before you go on, so that guy that like may have been trying to confess on his deathbed.
Yeah.
But we have no relevance to it. I don't believe it was him. Just going off, people confess for attention. Do you remember the guy who confessed to John Bonet's murder a couple of years back?
I don't remember that. I don't think I heard about that.
There was a guy who confessed to being the murderer of John Benet Ramsey some years back. I guess he was a teacher. I could be getting some of the details hazy, but it was impossible at the time. It was just one of those guys that wanted attention.
It happens a lot. There was this guy, I actually watched the documentary and I cannot remember his name, but there was this guy who confessed to, I want to say hundreds of murders, like hundreds of them. And he didn't do any of them. He was a liar. He maybe committed one or two murders, maybe. But I think it was the attention seeking aspect. And it was also kind of a corrupt sheriff, because the sheriff would essentially talk to him enough to where he would get information and know things that only the killer would know. So when he would go and meet with other detectives and tell them these things, they'd be surprised, like, oh, these details only the killer would know. But the timelines didn't really add up, and there were things that just didn't make sense. And so eventually they were like, I think he was lying about all of them.
A lot of those corrupt or smaller towns, bureaus, what have you. Yeah. A lot of times when they can close a case, especially back then, he admitted to this, we can close it. Boom, seal it up. No more work. It's case closed, good for them. So they just roll with it.
Yeah, and I think part of it's like there's always pressure to close a case, because, I mean, especially if it's like a murder or something, you have the victim's family, you do want to give them closure. I know that there's that pressure, and it's not necessarily ill-placed, but it shouldn't guide the direction.
Now, I have a question. When he jumped out of the plane, he was never found. No. There were things found, though, from what I understand, there were like stacks of money found that were potentially from that?
Well, the thing is, so they give him marked bills. And so there was some money, and I was going to tell you, one of the things you might want to include, like if you're going to put a picture up, so they have the identikit sketch, but there are also piles of the $20 bills believed to be money given to him. I think because of their identification with the marked bills and their location, a lot of money was found in 1980 by an 8-year-old kid on the shore of the Columbia River, buried a little bit in the sand. And so
where is the Columbia River?
The Columbia River, I did not look that up either. That is my apology.
Do we have a region?
Let's see. I think it's probably, I'm trying to think.
It was found at the bank, so a little boy uncovered it under the sand.
Yeah. And apparently it's a very dangerous river near Portland. So it's kind of close to the initial location. He didn't jump very much longer after they took off. So like
Okay.
it wasn't like he was riding for quite some time. It kind of seems like that's another thing I think, because it kind of seemed like maybe he got spooked and didn't really know when he was going to jump, or maybe he thought he could jump in a location that he was familiar with, and that way he could parachute down and then
Do you think
go
that
on
was the
home.
plan the entire time? It was never to go to Mexico. It was just a jump during this flight to throw people off topic.
I think it could go either way. I mean, it could be the plan the whole time. To go to Mexico, which would be beneficial for him because, like, again, it's 1971. He's in Mexico. He could probably, not blend in. Well, that is one thing. He wouldn't blend in, but he could probably find some locations, especially considering he has all this money in cash. So
Yeah,
he could probably pay his way.
He could be the gringo down the corner who doesn't say much.
Yeah, and like, who knows? Maybe he was going to go to Argentina. You never know. But then at the same time, maybe his plan was to jump closer to home. That way they're taking off. They think the plane has gone much further, and they're actually, contacting law enforcement down in Mexico or Reno or wherever he's going to stop. And they don't have the time. They can't look for him immediately because he jumped from the plane. So they wouldn't know to look for him.
So when they found this money, or this little boy
Yes.
found this money, what happened then?
So they, also, so the other things that they had is they had the ransom note that the flight attendants, there was nothing that they could, really gather from that.
Was it handwritten?
I believe, yeah, it was handwritten.
But this was before the time of like handwritten analysis and databases and all that.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like they really gathered a lot of information from it. And it's also probably like it's a short note and it's a list. So there's not a lot going on with that. They had some cigarette butts, but again, it's 1971. He had a clip-on necktie. That's the other thing. This guy was not cool. He had a clip-on. James Bond would never do that.
Okay, fair enough.
He would never do that. So he had a clip-on necktie, which he tore from his collar before he jumped from the plane.
Oh, he tore it from his collar.
He wasn't cool. You're gonna jump off now. No, not
I'm
cool
out of
at
here,
all.
guys. Business is over.
Yeah, and also the other thing I note about fingerprint analysis is that like fingerprint analysis is like kind of hard to get. You're not going to get it most of the time. I remember one of the biggest things that I have issues with in cases is people be like, well, there were no prints. I'm like, yeah, obviously there were no prints. You're not going to have prints on probably anything in your house. You're not going to have prints on your door handle because you smudged them. You're not going to have prints on your phone because you're constantly dragging it. Like, you're not going to be able to get prints like even today. And so if you have prints, that's special, but
TV is to blame for a lot of that.
It's called the CSI effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Like TV makes it seem like, okay, get the fingerprints, get the strain of hair. We'll catch them in a minute.
Yeah, you all. And even if you get those things and they return a result, it's going to take months. It's going to take so much longer than that. Even if you make it a priority, like you're not getting that answer today. It's not you go to the lab and you're like, what's going on, doc? And they're like, okay, so we're working this coordinate and this other thing. And then we found out that it's this person. It never happens like that. That's not real.
On the movies, they have an immediate result for whoever's fingerprint it was. Yeah. Like 30 seconds. They're like, oh, it's Chuck.
Yep.
He's in the Bronson neighborhood. Go get him.
Go get him.
Yeah,
it's
like
always
what?
Like that. As if that's also the only case that those detectives have. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things about it that don't make sense. But yeah, again, we're talking about 1971. And they couldn't get fingerprints. And I can't see them being able to get fingerprints from like a necktie at all. I mean,
especially a clip-on.
Yeah, it's like
maybe if he was fancy enough to buy a real one.
Right. The only thing is, like, you probably be more likely to be able to get fingerprints from a clip-on tie than you would a normal tie, which shows that he was not thinking about this at all, because he wouldn't have worn a tie if he had such a problem with it. He would have done better to not wear a tie than to wear a clip-on tie. But I
agree. Do better. DB, do better. You fucking nerd.
Yeah. But after they got the money, I think they identified the money, like as some of the money that was taken out of out of the amount that they gave him. It wasn't like a huge sum, but it was like a few stacks. But then the other thing about the whole, I don't know. So he found that, first of all, they were rotting. So it's important to note these $20 bills were rotting. They had been in water and in the sand.
So it wasn't like they were hidden. They weren't. It wasn't like someone dug a hole, put it in there. It was just lost money.
No, it doesn't seem like it. Because
before we go on, Brittany, just want to take a minute. Check out the Halloween shirts, guys.
Nice.
Inquisitive Minds Halloween shirts. Get them in the store. Different colors. Help support the podcast. Everything helps. And this podcast today is sponsored by Tenacious Detail, your mobile car detailing solutions. Right now, for the month of October, they're having spooky savings with 15% off any deluxe service, including a ceramic coating. And that in itself is a $75 value on that package right there. Call or schedule today at 724-498-9942. They're based in Pittsburgh, but they will travel up to 3 hours in any direction. Back to the show. So they found the money. It was rotten.
It was rotting, and it wasn't. I don't think it doesn't appear like somebody tried to hide the money there. It seems like it probably fell and landed there. But it was about $5,800. And like I said, the serial numbers matched the serial numbers and the money that they had.
You said it was about $5,800?
$5,800, yeah. So not a large sum considering it was $200,000. And that's like an amount that could reasonably fall like out of.
Well, I would wonder, since did they give him the money in a suitcase?
I don't know how they gave. I think they gave it to him in like a bag.
Okay.
Of some sort. Because
that was my next question. Like if it was in a suitcase, essentially, if one thing's fallen, they're all falling, especially out of the air.
And I think it was more than one. So I don't think it was necessarily going to be all in one location. I didn't see where he adds specifications for how they gave him the money, but it was definitely in exchange for the passengers getting off the plane safely.
Okay.
Which another thing is like, I mean, I don't know how much investigation they did into his claim of whether he actually had a bomb or not.
Yeah, that when he jumped, did he take the alleged bomb with him as well?
Yeah, he didn't leave the suitcase. He didn't leave the briefcase. So I don't think he had a bomb.
I think it would have been that much better of a move if he'd left the briefcase there that supposedly had the bomb in it.
Yeah.
And then when they, investigated it, it was just another note and said that, haha.
That would have been bad. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just wonder how this idea even came to him and what was his plan? Because it just doesn't seem very well thought out. I don't know. I don't think it's very good.
It doesn't seem. Did they find anything else? Did they find a case? Did they find there was 4 parachutes? Did they find any parachute markings in the trees? Anything?
No, they didn't find any of that because a lot of people don't think he survived. Like, and that's the crux. A lot of people just don't think he survived. I mean, you're talking about somebody who parachuted and jumps out of a plane at night in a storm.
Now
that is not an intelligent move. You have no visibility.
His remains, I guess, I've had Bigfoot experts on here, and I asked them about if Bigfoot's real, where are their remains? And they say, in the wilderness, when something dies, it gets eaten, torn apart. So I imagine if he died, that's what would happen with his remains. But you would think they would have found some type of clothing, something that wasn't edible, I guess, is the way I'll put it.
Yeah. I mean, something that wasn't edible. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he could have tried to undress himself. Maybe the whole outfit was clip-on and he tore it apart. He hurtled to the ground. I have no idea.
Do you remember those basketball pants? Yeah. Oh, my God. I had a pair of those, and I could never get them to break away in one pull.
Yeah.
I always looked like a half-wit.
I thought I saw a breakaway romper the other day. I was going to buy it. But
oh, my Lord. A breakaway romper.
Yeah. I
need to get out of this romper immediately.
What's up? I don't know. Have like a suit on underneath. That'd be kind of cool.
I know a lot of people think, or the general consensus is that he died. He didn't survive.
It doesn't seem like he survived.
I think it's so much more fun to think he did.
That he died?
No, to think that he lived.
That he lived? I mean, yeah, because
it's very interesting.
Hasn't been found.
Yeah, he hasn't been found. No traces of him have been found. He could have went and lived his life, wherever. And especially since it was the early 70s, and they didn't have all this crazy stuff. They didn't have a description. He could put on a T-shirt, take the fucking glasses off, and he's good to go.
Yeah.
What? You look like a white man. Yeah, so does everybody else.
I mean, and that's the thing. He was unremarkable.
Yeah, nothing fancy.
Great. No.
He didn't have any cool tattoos, but he thinks he's cool with no tattoos. I'm not buying it.
No. And so, but there was another thing I did want to mention that I found on the FBI database for this. So it seems like in the Daily Telegraph, which is a London, England paper, London, England newspaper, one that is still in production. There was an article, May 28th, 1971, which would have been a few months before this November incident. And there was a plot with an unknown subject using the name Mr. Brown, which is a B. This person.
We're pulling it together with strings now. Okay. There was a B in his name as well.
There is a B. But this person, he essentially pulled a DB Cooper on the Qantas airline at the Sydney International Airport in Australia. He wanted £235,000 ransom money after a bomb threat. The aircraft involved was a Boeing 707 airliner, which is the same.
Oh,
kind.
boy.
It's another B, another 707.
It's like this guy stole a Buick, and then 6 months later, another guy stole a Buick. They must have been connected.
But the other thing...
It's the Buick boys!
Buick boys, strike again. No. No, but so there was an identikit done of this suspect too, and it's another unremarkable, middle-aged white man. And I don't mean that. It sounds rough the way
we are unremarkable.
I didn't mean it like that, but he's just like a really normal-looking guy in his 40s. It does bear a resemblance to DB Cooper, but the other thing about it is that
oh man, this sounds a little racist.
How?
All these fucking white guys looking the goddamn same.
They do. These two men look the same. They do. And I can send you that picture too. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I think that's interesting. I don't think it's him though.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
He's a copycat probably.
I was just going to say, it sounds like he was a copycat, and then the guy in 74 was a bit of a copycat.
Yeah. They were all kind of copycats. Some people pulled it off with varying degrees of success. But, I mean, ultimately, it seems like he probably just died. It doesn't seem like he was... I think what happened, again, this all like smacks of this guy read a lot of books, thought that he could figure this out because, like, who can't figure out how to jump out of a plane, And, like...
Yeah. The thing I love about our Mysterious People series is that since we don't know a whole lot about these people, it leaves so much room for speculation.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets fun because we know nothing about this guy. But depending on how you look at the story, he could be your basic incel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you think I can't jump out of a plane? I read about that. Actually. Or he could be, a vigilante, Billy Badass, thinking he survived and he jumped out like a monster. It's just, this one, they know so little about DB Cooper, who he actually was. They don't even know what his voice was.
Yeah.
And even that could have unlocked so many secrets. Like, what if he had an accent?
Or like a very strange voice.
Yeah. He could have sounded like he was from another country. There's so many dialects in the United States. They could have pinpointed the region where he was from even.
Yeah. But like
what if he was like, hey, Yins need to get me $200,000.
Probably from Pittsburgh.
They're going to be like, oh, we know where that guy is.
Yeah. Or
he's like, I'm hijacking the plane, don't you know? I really want to know what his voice sounded like.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and he's so fucking boring that there was nothing about him to be like, oh, he could be this guy. It's just a white guy who did some shit, and then for the next 50 years, a bunch of people pointing fingers at white guys or a bunch of weird white guys saying, well, my life was unremarkable, but now that I'm dying, I was DB Cooper. Grandpa was interesting. No, he's not. He was fucking abusive to your grandmother and he died. He didn't do anything interesting.
So I don't know. It just kind of seems like, who knows? It could have been that individual who was unremarkable and maybe he's having a midlife crisis.
He could have owed money to the mafia.
He could have.
I know a guy who went to prison
one way or another,
who I was locked up with, who had a 10 to 20 year sentence. Mm-hmm. And he had gotten real bad into debt with some I don't want to say mafia, but whoever his bookie was or organized crime or what have you.
Yeah.
And his solution to get the money was to rob a series of gas stations. Now, I didn't question him on this while I was in there, but I always thought that was the stupidest fucking solution. You see, they constantly, every time they get a 50 or a couple 20s, they throw it in the safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are you getting? Cigarettes? You getting cigarettes and scratchers from robbing a 7-Eleven?
How much money did he need?
A significant more amount than he ever got.
I can imagine. Okay,
I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000. He needed $20,000, and his solution was to rob, Kogos and 7-Elevens and whatnot.
Yeah, no.
And it just,
Which are always getting robbed anyway, so they have extra precautions, unlike a lot of other places.
There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
There's cameras everywhere. You're not getting much money. It's public places. Like, what are you doing?
It's not worth it.
To be fair, I'm assuming there was some drugs involved. Like maybe he was an addict and that was his. But I don't know. Maybe he was just a fucking idiot.
Because that's not a good plan.
No, not at all. That's never been my plan. I've thought of robbing many things. A 7-Eleven convenience store has never been one of them.
You don't even stop at them. I feel like so many people get caught, which a lot of people get caught because of camera footage at places like 7-Elevens, because they all have it. Even if it's grainy, they have it.
It's such a low reward for the high risk. Yeah. What are you getting? $75? Like, come on.
No.
You gotta step it up and kidnap somebody if you're gonna get serious.
Don't do that.
We are not advocating kidnapping here. I'm just saying, if I need money, somebody's going to be in my basement.
I'm telling you right now, if you try to kidnap me, you're not getting any money. Anyone who's thinking about it, no one's going to give you any money. You don't have any money.
I would not kidnap anybody in the comic community because I know how poor we all are.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't mean you. I just mean anyone who was thinking about it.
You can kidnap me if you want to.
Yeah, I'll just ask for a lot of food. I will be way more trouble than I'm worth. You won't.
Yeah, that's I'm going to be a lot of trouble. Yeah. Because I'm not going to comply easily. You're going to hurt me. I know I'm going to get hurt. I'm thinking I'm going to die either way, so it's not going to be a fun time for any of us.
No, and I'm going to cry, and it's going to be very embarrassing, and I'm also going to crack so much sooner than you thought I would. So, and I'm a snitch, so it's not going to go well.
Oh, Brittany, that's terrible.
In the sense of, if I'm involved, I can't handle it. I cannot handle pressure. I can handle pressure when it comes to legal matters. Obviously, I understand, confidentiality and things of the nature. But if it's
I don't know about all this.
My butt is on the line. Oh my goodness! I'm oh my goodness. Yes, I was I think this is a bad idea. I told them, I said, we should not be doing this. I'm pretty sure it's illegal. So,
Brittany, you do, as a lawyer, you should know to not say anything to the police.
I wouldn't tell anyone, but
call your lawyer.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying I can't handle the pressure. When I was younger, if I got in trouble, if I did something wrong, I would tell on myself because I couldn't deal with the pressure.
Wow.
I'm very good at getting other people out of trouble, though. It's very good. If it doesn't have to do with me, just don't involve me in your nefarious behavior. Just leave me out of it.
I turn into the stereotypical mob guy who gets arrested on movies.
Yeah.
Because they bring me in. I'm like, look, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Never seen it. This is your mother. I don't know that woman.
Now,
who says I know her?
Yeah. If it's something like that, then I'm not her.
I learned after my first case to do your crimes alone. Because how I got caught was my co-defendant snitched on me.
Prisoner's dilemma. That happens all the time. That's why. Yeah.
Oh, it happens so much more than you think.
Oh, all the time. I remember someone I knew went to prison, and it was stupid. Everything the whole plan was just dumb. But the thing about it is they're like, my boys would never snitch. And I'm like, yes, they would. And they probably already did. And they had. They had
Absolutely.
so hard on him. And I was like, dude, you got to make better decisions, especially in who you trust, because these people do not have your back at all.
That's what, and it's. I'll be honest. It's easy to say, I'm solid. I don't snitch when you've never had that pressure against you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they're sitting in front of you telling you stuff, it's a different story.
And you think you can get out of it yourself. Yeah.
And I get that. It's not for everybody. But if you can't do whatever time you're committing a crime for,
Yeah.
that's when you shouldn't be doing it.
No. And that's me. That's where I fall. I just don't do it in the first place. I'm like, I will just leave you alone and you just don't call me if you need help. Afterwards, you just call me then and I got you.
One of my proudest accomplishments, and it probably shouldn't be anything I'm proud for because it doesn't speak good of me in society, but it speaks good of my character, is that I have paperwork. You can check. I didn't say a fucking word about nobody. What's T.I. say? Check my paperwork. I'm good to go.
I love T.I. T.I. would say parachutist. That's all I'm saying.
T.I. would definitely say parachutist.
Mm-hmm. He would.
He had to get out of that airplane expeditiously.
He did have to get out of that airplane very expeditiously, my man. Big
Wow.
to do.
So, I mean, it's a great story, and it's so intertwined with the unknown and mystery. Yeah. And it's probably one of those ones that's, unfortunately, I mean, if we're covering it, it's never going to be solved.
The only thing I'll say about that is they did solve the Zodiac Killer.
Okay. You know what?
Pretty recently, too.
This could have been a great Mysterious People series show, but I want to jump right into that since we're at the tail end here.
Yeah.
Who was the Zodiac Killer? Because I've heard things and theories.
I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't Ted Cruz's dad. I know that much. That was not.
Well, I watched an Unsolved Mysteries episode many years ago that linked the Zodiac Killer to Ted Krasinski, the Unabomber.
Okay.
And the way they did that was with the code he wrote in. Yeah. He wrote in. Excuse me.
Writ is fine. We're saying parachutist. You're good.
In the code he wrote in. And I guess they tied that into how Ted Kaczynski was like a mathematical genius and whatnot. And somebody had quote unquote unciphered the code, deciphered. What is wrong with me today? He unciphered it. He deciphered the code, and it was Ted, the Unabomber. But I don't know about that. And you say it wasn't Ted Cruz's father?
It wasn't Ted Cruz's father. That was a theory that Donald Trump was pushing, which, I don't know. It's kind of funny.
By the way, Ted Cruz supports Donald Trump now.
Can I tell you something? I don't understand it because, like, he supports Donald Trump, but Donald Trump also said his wife was ugly. I'm like, bro, like, have you no loyalty?
He said such horrible things about him.
About him and all of his family. He's like, your wife's ugly, your dad's a serial killer.
The only way I can say maybe he was okay is if he looked at it like a comedic roast.
Yeah, but he did
like they were on stage and whatnot. Because if we're roasting each other, I'm not going to take anything you say to heart and vice versa, hopefully. Yeah. But that's the only way I could put a lens on it for him to look like that. Because you call my wife ugly, especially now, we're going to have an issue.
Because, like, if I was the wife, I'd be like, okay, so you're just going to get away with that?
Yeah, exactly. What do you say to your wife?
Okay, interesting.
I'm sorry, honey. I didn't defend your honor.
At all. And then you endorsed him. Have fun with Donald Trump tonight, because I'm going out. No, but you asked me who the Zodiac Killer was. So, the Zodiac Killer was Gary Leon Ridgway, who was also known as the Green River Killer.
Hold on, they were one and the same?
Yeah. It makes sense. I remember
Gary Ridgway was the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Now, Brittany, I'm going to ask you because I'm a bit of a, I don't want to say a fan, but I find all those serial killers fascinating. I listen to a lot of podcasts about them. I read about them, watch documentaries about them. I've never heard that the Gary Ridgway was the Zodiac Killer. Where did you get this information?
I am looking it up right now. Don't quote me. No, but it seems like, I know. So I actually remember I was in a store when I heard that they caught the Zodiac Killer, and it was essentially, Gary Stewart wrote a book about his dad named Gary Leon Ridgway. I do remember this, and he really thought that his dad was the serial killer. And I'm looking at a CNN article right now. But he believes that his dad was the serial killer. And it seems like at some point this story was verified. And he's thought it was his father for a very long time. The book is called The Most Dangerous Animal of All, which I do believe is based on another book with the same name. And essentially that book is about hunting people.
Hmm.
Or the most. I think
Okay.
the book is The Most Dangerous Game. I think that's what it is. But let me see. He was caught because the thing about the Zodiac killers, he sent those letters to the police and newspapers boasting of the killings. Stewart was born in New Orleans, and he was abandoned as a newborn. His birth mother told him that he hadn't contacted his birth father since he had been abandoned.
This is Gary Ridgway's son.
Yeah. And so at one point, he saw a television program where they were showing a wanted poster in San Francisco in 1969. Yeah, I think. Oh, and so the guy he lived with was his dad. He wasn't abandoned by Gary Ridgway. He lived with Gary Ridgway.
Okay.
And he's like, Dad, it's you. He like sees him on the screen. He's like, that looks a lot like you, Dad. Wait, no, I reversed that. He had a picture of his father. And he went and looked at the picture and was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's my dad. And
Now,
the thing
not
is, this guy had been telling them for years that it was his dad. Like, in 1969, he took out like a picture and he was like, no, that's my dad. So he's been thinking this for like his whole life.
Now, not to be a stickler here, but I love facts. Outside of that, like there seems like a lot of correlations and speculations on the point of the son, but it was officially never closed that he was the Zodiac killer.
I'm not sure because
It was just another claim.
I don't think it was. I'm trying to find if it was. There's conflicting reports because one of these things, this case like was solved like pretty recently. It was solved in, I want to say, 2016. So I don't know if it's like officially been closed or if it's not officially.
I want to go on a limb and say it's not officially closed. Following that type of stuff, I feel like that would have been news that I would know about specifically.
I just remember hearing about it on the news.
And wasn't there a Zodiac movie fairly recently around 2016?
It was before that, I want to say.
Okay.
You're talking about the one with, I want to say, Johnny Depp?
I don't know. I didn't see it.
There might have been another one, though.
But it was within the last 10 years or so, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see that movie, though.
Neither did I. And also the defense of that guy, I guess since he didn't live with his father or was abandoned by his father,
yeah,
it's easy to make these things up in your head. The first time I can remember meeting my father, I was 12, and I didn't know much about him. The only thing my mom told me was he had a bunch of tattoos, which he didn't. It's not a bunch. He had a couple. He had a bunch of tattoos. And, as a small child, I thought he was a bigger guy. So I was convinced for at least a day or two, my dad was probably the Undertaker.
Okay.
And, for about a day as a 12-year-old, I convinced myself that my father was the Undertaker. And also that was why he was never in my life, because he had to be on the road all the time. Mm-hmm. And then when we actually met him, I don't know, a week later, boy, oh boy, was I disappointed.
Yeah.
He was not anything near the Undertaker.
Okay.
He was closer to Paul Bear.
To who?
He was closer to Paul Bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's fascinating.
So I think you're right. I don't think it's been officially closed. I won't lie, though. I do think that you should check out that book, The Most Dangerous Animal, of all like the recent one, because I don't think it's an insane theory.
Let me ask you this, Brittany. I think that the Zodiac Killer would be a great Mysterious People episode. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it could be.
To go into a deep dive, to get more into him.
Yeah.
I think we could potentially talk about him on a future episode.
It would have to be probably more than one too, because I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page now, because Wikipedia is actually way more reliable than it was when I was a kid. But there are a lot of like potential, suspects, like people that they got. I see Ted Krasinski as one of the people, the ones you mentioned. I don't know why I didn't know his name. I knew about the Unabomber, and I didn't hear about the connection between the Zodiac and the Unabomber. There was also like Bruce Davis, so there's a lot here.
Yeah, there was a lot going on with him.
Yeah, they was pretty crazy. Because the other one, it's kind of weird. I mean, I think it's just a serial killer thing, but like the Axeman, I don't know if you know who he is.
The Axeman of New Orleans,
Yeah,
where
that was
they told him if
weird.
they played jazz, he wouldn't murder anybody in that household. Yeah,
And then
that
he
was,
did it, and that was
yeah,
weird.
yeah. It's like when people do what they say they're going to do, it's so strange. It's such a foreign feeling.
Well, it's not just to do what they say. It's why would you say the jazz part? I'm not going to murder anyone if you play jazz. I really like big band, and I just want to see everyone having a good time. Like, that's what that feels like.
I mean, that's a psycho.
That's what I'm
That's,
saying. He's like, God, he kept saying he was from hell. So, I mean, obviously he's crazy. There's some issues.
well, I tell you what, D.B. Cooper was a fascinating story. Unfortunately, we don't know much more than that, guys.
No.
You know,
But he really
unless another
lived.
white guy decides to come out and say it was him.
Who's
It would
probably in
be,
his 90s.
yeah, I was going to say who'd be in their 90s at this point.
Yeah.
He might not even remember doing it.
Yeah. It happens a lot, though. I mean, you do have people admitting guilt later in life.
That lady who had accused, oh,
I know what you're talking about. Emmett Till?
yes, the lady who had
Yeah.
accused Emmett Till on her deathbed
Yeah.
finally came clean.
Which is
I
like,
did.
oh my goodness. Like, I
We
don't
did
know
a
why you
two-part.
did this.
Yeah, we did a two-part episode about that on What in the History with Dan Brady. You guys can check that out. But I just want to go on record and saying again, fuck that lady. Fuck that lady. I hope
That child get
she
murdered.
suffered her whole life.
I hope that it haunted her whole life. You don't do that to a family and then to a child. She was lying. Like, that's the thing. She was lying about it. There was nothing to lie about
And she knew what the consequences were.
the whole time.
They weren't going to
She's
give him a
right.
stern talking to.
No, they were going to murder him, and he was a kid.
They
It's not even
tortured
like
that
an ex
young kid.
or something. They literally did, and it's not even like it was like an ex that she claimed beat her. Like, she knew. Not that that would be right. It wouldn't be, but she did this to
Yeah.
someone she didn't know, a child, for no reason.
Well, there was a reason.
Oh yeah,
Because he
there
was
a
black.
reason. That was it.
Because he was black, and he was a little bit more outspoken than the people that they were used to. He was from Chicago. He came down. He had a good personality, he had some flair. He was fun, and they didn't take too kindly to his kind being like that. Like, go fuck yourself. I don't want to get off topic here again. Again, check that out. Two-part episode on What in the History with me and Dan Brady. Brittany Alexis, I want to thank you for coming on today. Where can the people find you?
On social media, on Instagram at bfelds, that's BFELDZ, and also on TikTok at bfelds, BFELDZ, or Facebook. I have a comedy page, Brittany Alexis Comedy, which is also at bfelds on Facebook. I haven't been posting as much on there, but I'm about to start posting a lot of the videos that I made on TikTok because it's pretty good. I'm about to start making more videos,
So follow her on TikTok, guys. Follow her on Instagram,
Yeah.
all that stuff, her comedy pages. You got any upcoming shows?
Not immediately. I have one coming up in November at a VFD with some really great comics. It's gonna be like Tyler A. Kendrick, Douglas Soul Productions, and it's also, oh my goodness, I know her name.
Is it Ann Casper?
It's not Ann Casper.
Cassie Bruno?
It's not Cassie Bruno. It's like someone cool. Like, she's really cool. What is her name? I know her name. It's like, I literally had it on the top of my tongue. I'll give it, because I have a flyer. But that one's on November 12th.
November 12th at the Thunderbird Cafe?
No, it's not at the Thunderbird Cafe. It's at a VFD.
At VFW. Check out Brittany Alexis,
Yeah.
Tyler Ray Kendrick, Doug Sluck, and a random white lady to be named.
She's not random. She's very, very talented, and I like her a lot. Let's see. What is her
If
name?
only we knew who she was.
If only we knew. We will know. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wait,
I'm not trying to give shade to this lady, but if she were talented and you liked her, you'd know who she was.
I do know who she is, and she's really funny. And I have her name, like, right here. It's, like, literally, like, right here. Here we go. Her name is Rebecca Canterbury, and I knew it. I did know it. She's good. She's really good.
Okay, so check them out. November 17th, you said?
14th.
November 14th at the VFW
in Holiday Park.
Okay, check her out there.
Sorry, Rebecca. I love you.
So she claims.
I do.
Also, you guys got any criminal justice problems, reach out to Brittany Alexis. I'm sure she's always looking for business.
And I
Guys, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and we do like property, real estate, all kinds of stuff too. So
Okay, they do everything you need. Guys, if you're listening to this, you already know where to find me. Check us out at inquisitiveminds.com. Every week, I go through this. It's spelled a little bit differently, guys. INQUIZATIVE, minds.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter at Inquisitive Mind. We're on all the listening, streaming platforms. Check us out somewhere. YouTube, follow, subscribe, do something. It's free. It helps me out. I'm trying to grow a brand here. Brittany Alexis, thank you so much for coming on. You can catch me on October 31st at the Smoked Out and Shot Out show with Sean Parker, Alok, and all those great guys over there. It's going to be a blast. It is smoker friendly and bring your own bottle. It's musical guests. It's going to be a party. Come enjoy yourselves. Next week, I am joined by Mary Fabian as we discuss Bigfoot. That will also be outside of studio because I am very happy to announce on Thursday I will be in Texas. My sister had a baby this year. This is the 4th time I've tried to get down there. Fuck COVID. I'm going to see my little sister. Going to see my new niece. So we will see you guys back in studio 2 weeks from now. Anything else, Brittany?
nothing for me. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening, guys.